S1E2. Talking about Prog. In Groove is a music podcast that focuses on discussions of music. Everything from bestsellers to the unknowns and everything in between. I am your host, Jarrod White, and I'm joined by my co-host, Dan Griffin.
Hey, how's it going?
Ben King.
Howdy.
And for this episode, our special guest, Branden Denise.
Hello.
Branden, do you want to introduce yourself?
My name's Branden. I've known all these crazy crackers for a long time now, and I know they're all aficionados when it comes to knowing all kinds of crazy music. They're,
All right, time's up.
Yeah.
We're moving on. And like I said, this week we're talking about prog rock and progressive metal, maybe. Basically, just prog in any form.
Yeah.
Anything progressive. And our album for this episode was Journey, Look Into the Future, which is the second Journey LP from 1976. I just want to say before we get into a big discussion on it, great album.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It is.
Awesome.
Pre Steve Perry Journey.
Famous Journey. This is them starting out very progressive, very 70s.
Quartet, I believe.
But
they used to.
we're going to talk about the genre of progressive rock and progressive metal, prog.
Yeah.
And then we're going to move on to our discussion of our album.
Yeah.
We're going to give prog recommendations.
Yep.
And then at the end of the show, we're going to do our... each show we do a top 5, and this week is going to be top 5 favorite guitarists. So stay tuned to the end of the show to hear our picks for our top 5 favorite guitarists.
Yeah.
But right now, we're going to just talk about prog. What do you guys think of prog?
Prog's a really interesting and just this huge expansive universe of music that there's so much out there that after a while you feel like you just don't want to stop searching. You feel like you don't want to stop searching. You always want to find that new group that you really like. I don't know.
Yeah, I really like the fact that they, they were very bored of playing, 3/4 chord kind of. Because a lot of the groups at that time, that's what they were doing. They were playing 3/4 chord songs. And they really wanted to experiment with jazz elements, classical elements in particular.
Fuse stuff together.
Yeah, and, do maybe 3 songs on an album. Being like a 20-minute song on there. And
close to the edge.
Yeah, exactly.
Seriously though, what's not to love about prog?
Yeah.
Like, it's just experimental and different. You'll never find 2 prog songs that are exactly alike.
Yeah.
Even if like the only difference is that one measures in 11/8 and the next measures in like 17/9.
Yeah. It's always very it's a very creative kind of music, and it never gets old in my book.
And ever since its birth, it's been around and constantly its name is progressive.
Right.
So constantly changing, but I find it so interesting that we have all these different waves of prog. We have the early prog coming out of the psychedelia movement, blending garage rock, acid rock, psychedelic sounds.
The Nice.
Into bands like The Nice.
Yeah.
That just, are taking all these sounds present at the time and just, like you're saying, expanding on the musical form because they're sick of playing the same old thing.
Yeah.
Then you get moving into the classic period of prog with bands like Yes, King Crimson, Gentle Giant, early Genesis, all these and Emerson, Lake and Palmer, all these mammoth prog monsters that were all seated with each other, all the same. It's almost like the same members in all these bands. King Crimson, Yes, Emerson, Lake and Palmer. They're all like one family tree. Atomic Rooster,
Asia,
and then you move into stuff like Asia, where prog is getting mixed with AOR elements. Mm-hmm. You get the neo-prog movement born from bands like Saga, Marillion, IQ. And then moving on, we've had all these new waves of prog where, you have these, progressive metal, which we're going to talk about a little bit later. But you also have, all these bands like the Mars Volta, Porcupine Tree, all these, the list goes on and on. Right. Beardfish, Frost, all these bands that are just taking these old styles, blending them up, taking what they like, expanding on the forms, and they really have more freedom than any other, to do any type of prog they want.
Absolutely.
So many of these bands blend prog metal, prog, and with straight up pop and rock. So this whole different eras and styles of it to talk about. We're doing a broad discussion.
Yeah.
So what are some of our prog favorites? Who do we like? Who do we always gravitate towards?
I mean, maybe stereotypical, but I think Yes is an amazing band.
Yeah.
To be around, 45 years and still, they still tour, and they're, I think, somewhat relevant in classic rock. Like, they're definitely one of my favorite bands from that era. Like you said,
Yes album is definitely like the most popular, especially on the radio.
Yeah, you hear a lot of those songs, like songs like I've Seen All Good People,
Starship Troopers.
Sometimes.
Probably some of the most commercially popular prog music ever.
And there's obviously some more commercial stuff, like you have Rush and Kansas, I guess you would consider progressive. Early Journey, as we just mentioned. I'm a big fan of, as you mentioned, early Genesis. When Peter Gabriel was the frontman, and they had Steve Hackett on guitar. Phil Collins was the drummer.
When Peter Gabriel ran out on stage with all these freaky
A
costumes.
flower.
Yeah, Peter Gabriel and the infamous Slipperman costume from that just looked like a turd with legs.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, I love that Lamb Lies Down on Broadway. I think that's their best album.
Yeah,
but
when they did Supper's Ready and he did all the costumes. A flower. I love that.
the flower costume is
flower.
so goofy.
Yeah.
But I mean, a lot of these bands from this classic period, it's interesting to look at now, looking back, how they, I mean, for lack of a better word, totally sold out in the 80s. Just like, whether it was their fault or not. But, I mean, you're talking Yes, you're talking Genesis, you're talking even King Crimson a little bit, you're talking
ELP,
Emerson, Lake and
they had a
Palmer
couple hits in the
doing
80s.
Love Beach.
Touch and Go, was that a song they did?
Yeah,
It was like a commercial song.
Rush doing more commercial sounding albums with radio friendly, hit single 4 or 5 minute long
Tom
tracks.
Sawyer and stuff,
I mean, all these bands did that.
Yeah.
Almost all of them. They did that or they died out.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, really. And very few of them, chugged along doing prog. Even, the less known ones who didn't have big hits in America, bands like Gentle Giants and stuff, did turn to a more accessible form.
Yeah. I was. It's funny you mentioned that because I was watching a documentary on Yes, and Rick Wakeman, who wasn't in the band at the time, like when they did like Owner of a Lonely Heart and stuff like that.
Yeah, he had left long before that.
He said that saved Yes from completely imploding.
Oh, it definitely did.
And some people don't really consider those albums Yes albums, which I find a little ridiculous. Because I mean, there's still some prog elements on like that album 90125 songs like Changes and Cinema. Yeah, it's. I mean, yeah, there's some commercial stuff with Owner of a Lonely Heart, Leave It, but overall that's a great album, and I do agree with Rick. I mean, it definitely saved them. And like you said, Genesis. I mean, when Gabriel and Hackett left, they were a trio, and they had a bunch of pop singles like Misunderstanding, Abacab, Invisible Touch. But I think in a way that saved them too. But it's funny because they haven't really gone back to the prog roots. Like they haven't toured with Gabriel.
Do you think like these prog groups that went into commercial, do you think they just went into commercials so that they can still have that fan base and the money to like later on with all that huge new fan base they got because they were on the radio? Do you think they did that so they could go back to their prog roots so maybe people can get more of their early sound, or what do you think?
I think it was a multitude of factors. I mean, you have a changing, like the musical landscape is constantly changing and evolving, and what's in and what's out and what's popular and what's selling and what the executives think the audience wants is constantly changing. So you just have these bands that are forced to adapt or fall into obscurity. You have these bands that didn't change their sound who honestly aren't very well known now, because they just had their fan base that stuck with them and dwindled over the years. People aren't going to be going out to see these shows forever. They get older, they lose interest, but it's these bands that adapted to the times for better or for worse that have sort of stuck around in one way or another.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think they just basically just kind of wanted to explore that element of, being a rock star, I guess. I mean, bands like Yes and stuff, they were popular in the 70s. They would sell out arenas, but they didn't really have pop singles. They didn't really have hit. You never really heard them on the radio. Maybe you would hear Roundabout every now and then, but
same for like an early Genesis. Like you're not going to hear something off like Trick of the Tail or
I think
Nursery Crimes.
the success of Pink Floyd with albums like Dark Side of the
Yeah.
Moon and Wish You Were Here really pushed prog to not only a very mainstream consciousness, but also to we have to find a way to cash in on this craze, to make this type of music accessible and audience friendly, and so we can sell it.
Yeah, started getting more respect than they usually did.
And then also you have bands like Yes doing an album like Tales from Topographic Oceans, which is so extreme, or Jethro Tull doing Thick as a Brick. These huge, massive, long pieces that are really indulging in classical influence and folk influence and experimental influence that is really fracturing the audience into two. You have people hearing Dark Side of the Moon first, hearing about prog really, and then you have the people on the other side that are, I mean, this is all speculation on my part, but people who are really into music, that have been listening to the genre for years, who are hardcore fans that are just sticking to that stuff, and you have this tug of war between these two sides. Do we, try to get a larger audience and stay alive, or do we just play to what we know, play to what's safe? And I think for some bands it benefited them, and for other bands, definitely Rush, a band that really adapted its sound well. I think some of those albums they did in the 80s that have a more commercial sound that their big hits came off of are some of their best LPs, for sure. But a band like Genesis, I think, suffers from it.
Yeah, they did.
And
it's
Yes, definitely. I mean, I'm not going to discredit those years for Yes, but definitely a fall down in quality from their classic era.
It's funny that you mentioned Jethro Tull. They're one of the biggest and probably, in my opinion, one of the best prog bands. They never really
look at Aqualung.
Yeah, they didn't really change like as much as like Genesis or Yes. I mean, they
definitely did.
Well,
if you listen to albums like A
Under Wraps
or Under Wraps,
but like
very 80s production, drum machines, like just the very fact of hearing drum machines on a Jethro Tull album.
I just don't think they, I think with a band like Yes, they did it, or in Genesis, they did it for a longer period of time. I don't think Jethro Tull did it as like...
also, Jethro Tull didn't have any big hits with those albums.
Right.
Yeah, so they realized the formula wasn't working for them. And I think they were a band that sort of lost attention for a few years until they had the album that won.
What, the Crest of a Knave?
Crest of a Knave that won Metal Album of the Year with that great story that it won Metal Album of the Year, and it was this big argument in the music industry.
They were
that
sure
Jethro Tull wasn't a metal band, to which Ian Anderson responded by taking out an ad in, I forget what magazine it was, but a big magazine or newspaper, a big publication, with a flute lying on top of a bunch of steel, and it says the flute is a heavy metal instrument.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah.
Minstrel and the quick note, I love Minstrel and the Gallery. That's like
they're an unbelievable.
That's like one of my favorite albums ever.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think it's really just like Ben said, there's so many bands, and prog is shot off into so many different subsections because it has so many influences. There's so many different ways to take it. I mean, let's see if we can talk briefly about like progressive metal, like where that has gone. I mean, Branden, what do you think about progressive metal? I know you're a fan.
Well, when I listen to prog in general, I do it from the perspective of I want to hear a story, and I think that progressive metal is a great way to tell a story. We have great prog influence, or great prog bands who are very conceptual, such as any of Arjen Lucasson's works, or even getting into Coheed in Cambria, who is more of an alt-rocky but also very prog metal band. And I don't know, I guess I don't know.
Well, I mean, you're approaching it from the conceptual side of these things.
Yeah.
I mean, progressive music has always had a kind of, as well as an adventurous spirit, just in the musicality, aspirations to a higher degree of storytelling in music, and just I think overall experiences you get from the albums. You immediately have conceptual albums in Prog. You have Jethro Tull doing Thick as a Brick, which is a kind of mind-bending concept in and of itself. You have this album based on a fictional poem written by a young boy, published in a newspaper, which you get a copy of with the magazine.
Yeah.
I mean, with the LP. I mean, with this really, like, it's a very postmodern album. You have these lyrics that are both brilliant in and of themselves, but commenting on the very nature of this lyricism, the almost insane and inane nature of it.
Yeah.
And I think some of the things you mentioned, Branden, with Arjen Lucassen, with his just absolutely, I mean, revolutionary albums that he's done with his Arion project. I mean, he's taking it to a new level. He's taking, you know, the kind of stuff forged ahead by The Who with albums like Tommy and Quadrophenia. You know, not explicitly Prog albums, but albums that definitely had an impact on that kind of thinking. Taking that kind of aspect, making it so much more theatrical, and really pushing that storytelling element. If anyone isn't familiar with Arjen Lucassen and Arion, he has guest vocalists on every album, and they each play parts. And it's almost it's a prog rock opera, and he dips his toes in prog metal, folk, all kinds of genres, symphonic music.
And I think the two, going along with like the storytelling, the two that I really, really enjoyed was like the kind of the tale they said in Inside the Electric Castle, and I think it was the theory of everything. The theory of everything. They just ramble on about math after a while. It's pretty cool. Math and science. It's that cool concept. But then, but I love that. But the Inside the Electric Castle, Branden, am I right? This crazy space opera. I mean, how amazing did that sound the first time you heard it? You know,
it is an experience. It's like just hearing the way that he is able to take so many elements of so many different genres and just have all of his guest vocalists who come from metal bands or like pop bands. He'll just have them all do their thing, and the way that he is able to compose music and write stories, like,
and the way he like just starts off the album with like it sounds like you're literally going on this journey. You don't stop just don't stop the music until you're completely finished with the tour through this castle. And he brings up that vocalization, the crazy synth that he does a couple more times, and it's just so cool the way they welcome to the new dimension. It is what an opening. I'm looking
I mean, I love that album. Those for him, just the multitude of guests he has on it. I mean, he has this guy Peter Daltrey, who he discovered from this album Kaleidoscope that he was the lead singer of, and Arjen Lucassen had this album. He just loved this guy's voice. You know, who's fucking heard of this guy? No one's ever heard of this guy.
Yeah.
I've never heard of this guy, and I know this goddamn album. And he gets this guy in here, and he has him do this narration. But then, if you take a look at the people he has in his band, I mean, his drummer always on every Arion project is this guy Ed Warby, this amazing drummer. And this guy is known for being the drummer for the band Gorefest. So I mean, you have this brutal death metal drummer. This guy has a brutal death metal background, mixing up with these folk rock
playing
vocalists.
You have him playing the like classical kinds of tunes.
I mean, for anyone who hasn't heard this album, this is an album. This is one to mark down in your books that you must hear. Just there's parts where it sounds like Tull. There's parts where it sounds like, you know, yes, and there's parts where it sounds like nothing you've ever heard before.
I'm interested on how he got Ed Warby to go and do these albums, transitioning transitioning from Gorefest to that. I wonder how he actually kind of convinced him of all these concepts.
And Arjen Lucassen himself he's a hippie. He's like, if you ever watch interviews with the guy, he's a recluse. He like never leaves his house. He's like 7 feet tall. And he has no sense of taste. He lost his sense of taste.
Oh. Wow.
He's just the most interesting guy. And he's 7 feet tall, and he never leaves his house, and he has a studio in his house, and he just has all these amazing people like Fish and
Bruce Dickinson.
Peter Daltrey, Bruce Dickinson, Andy Darris from Halloween, Hansi Kirsch from Blind Guardian, John Wetton, all these.
Yeah.
I mean, on his last album, he had Steve Hackett, Rick Wakeman, and Keith Emerson all guesting on
That's
it.
amazing.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's nuts.
Yep.
But
he's coming out with a new. They're recording something new, right? It was something like he's combining folk and then there's also like classical meets metal. It was like a
yeah, it's him and
remember
I'm
reading
totally
this-
blanking on her name right now. The vocalist he always has with her. She's a female vocalist.
I think she was also going along the lines of folk. I think she's
Annette Van Ginsberg.
Oh, there we go.
That they're doing an album together.
That's awesome.
But yeah. Anything else about Prog? Anything dying to say?
I just think that going back to what I was saying was all the commercial stuff, that the one band that I just want to name off the top of my head that really it's just a good example if they just kept up with their sound was Spock's beard.
Yes.
First of all, everybody loves Star Trek. It's the episode where
Mirror, mirror.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's, Spock hits a beard and Kirk goes nuts. But second of all, I think they're just like a good example of they're a prog band that just didn't kind of give in to the commercial stuff. They didn't want to be on like the popular radio shows. They knew they had their fan base and they knew they what the fans liked. They just kept making. And
I mean, their first album right off the go, pretty recent, 90s, I think the first album is just, I think it's 5 songs. 2 of them are over 20 minutes.
Yeah.
I think, if I'm correct.
No kidding.
And it's just like a monumentally great prog album. It blends, Latin sounds in some songs. Senor Velasco, that piece in the first
it's
suite.
great stuff.
That's what we're finding with like a lot of new prog bands is after the commercialism of the 80s, it sort of fell off the map again, and now prog bands are doing their own thing. They're building albums the way they want to with all these different elements of different genres, and they're really bringing it back to the roots, and you can find it in millions, or not millions, but many more different genres than you could back in the day. And even then it was expansive, but now you could find like Oriental prog, which is like Middle Eastern sounds with all these prog timings and classical elements and neoclassical elements and stuff. And
I mean, prog has pervaded almost every genre. You have progressive death metal, progressive black metal, progressive folk, progressive pop. You have everything. You have neo prog.
Then there's prog of it. Like, just look at Devin Townsend. He has like this progressive hardcore metal and then progressive electro synth pop kind of deal.
I know.
And the 2 albums released one day after another. Just
as companion pieces.
different.
One is brutally intense, like being pummeled with a baseball bat, drumming the whole time, and the other one is a dream pop ambient album. So.
Yeah.
I mean, one band that I haven't mentioned that is probably, I mean, if you really made me pick, my favorite prog band is Marillion. Ooh. And just, I think Marillion, for me, they're so perfect because they capture the bittersweet so well. Just listen to their most famous album, Misplaced Childhood, and you just hear there's this great, like also, there's a great nostalgia in it, but also great sadness, a great, sense of time change and great sense of things moving, loved ones lost. It's this beautiful, moving, singular piece that is a series of pop songs strung together. But their most perfect album, it might even be Brave, but it might be Clutching at Straws.
I was just gonna say,
I have a hard time picking.
Brave is just. I honestly think it's just quite excellent, and what I got the sense of this concept of like, just being like kind of this brave warrior who's seen so much, and it's kind of sad when he keeps moving forward. That's what I got. I don't know why, but I'm listening to it.
There's actually a film that goes along with Brave that
Really?
I haven't seen. It's like a sort of like Pink Floyd's The Wall. It plays the music along with the film.
Yep.
But the concept of Brave was based off of a newspaper story that I think Steve Rothery read in a newspaper, or it might have been Steve Hogarth. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
One of the two. and or at least someone in Marillion. And it was a story about this girl they found, I believe, underneath a bridge, and she didn't know who she was. She didn't know her name or anything, and so they thought, wow, what is this girl's story? Where has she been? And that was sort of the basis for that album. But what a great statement from that band, and what a beautiful album. That one and Clutching at Straws, which is the last album with Fish, and really his swan song. Just this album dealing about this alcoholic character, about alcoholism and knowing that you're killing yourself and what that means. But great band. I said this a few minutes ago, but any last thoughts on Prog before we go into our specific album?
Last thing I have to say is, what a fan base for every genre of subgenre of Prog. What a fan base.
Yeah.
That's all I have to say.
I mean, when pitting the Prog fan base against the metal fan base would be like a most mighty of battles.
Yeah.
They are the most dedicated fan bases.
Right.
It's basically like the last Lord of the Rings battle and the first battle in Fellowship combined into one. And there's two Saurons.
A very proggy concept right there. I think some prog band is going to write a concept album about that very battle. But anyway.
Hopefully they listen to us.
Yeah. Arjun, we love you. But
Based Arjun.
but our album that we listened to this episode was Journey. Yes, that Journey.
Yeah.
Look Into the Future from 1976, their second full-length LP after the self-titled LP.
And to repeat, like we said before Steve Perry. This is before this guy.
They were a quartet.
If I could just run through the lineup real quick, we have Greg Rowley on lead vocals and keyboards, Neil Schoen on guitar, Ross Valerie on bass, and the great Ainsley Dunsbar on drums and percussion.
Yeah.
So this is pre-Steve Perry. This is pre...
It's
quote-unquote commercialization.
Yeah.
This is Journey dipping their toes in progressive music.
They sound like a completely different band, in my book.
Yeah.
I mean,
without a doubt.
Neil Sean's guitar sound is very distinct. I can pick it out he sounds like, the solos sound like the same from from more of the popular songs to this. Like, I could definitely pick out his guitar playing. But yeah, like we said, it's a completely different band. There were some swing elements I noticed, especially on the last tune.
Well, I think you're hearing those because it's a bit of a jazz fusion influence on the tracks. So you have very
later on in it.
you have these instrumental breaks that are very influenced by, I dare say, something like Mahavishnu Orchestra. This blending of rock.
Yeah.
Psychedelic rock with jazz. Or something like Phil Collins' side project, Brand X, But yeah, I really like this album. We none of us had ever heard it before.
No.
I've been meaning to listen to this for literally years.
Yeah, I didn't even know this existed until today.
So there we have a multitude of...
I kind of forgot that there's one cover tune, it's a Beatles tune, called It's All Too Much, George Harrison song.
It's a great song.
Which I kind of forgot that Journey covered this song. I remember vaguely hearing about that. And it sounds absolutely nothing like the Beatles version. The Beatles version, to me, sounds like a Hendrix song. There's a lot of, feedback, a lot of whammy bar action. There's it sounds very, their version's 7 minutes. This is, I think, about 4.5, you said.
But yeah, 4.
Yeah, it's overall really solid album. A lot of great riffs.
And solos.
And a lot of
Holy
solos.
This title track, the title track, the opening track of the B-side, Look Into the Future, this 8-minute track, starts off with a sort of slower ballad feel before, in the latter half, it launches into this monster, monster guitar solo from Neil Schoen.
It just keeps moving and moving, and all of a sudden, solo. At the beginning of the song, you don't expect this solo to come out later on the song, but when it does, you're very happy that it came along.
Yeah, and I think that's the highlight of the album. But the B-side, that really starts the B-side off well, and I think the B-side is a lot stronger than the A-side.
That's what I felt too. I mean, the first 2 or 3 songs, they're good. They're solid songs.
But they're more just like a standard hard rock song.
They're hard rock, yeah.
The second half is where they really get into the prog elements, where the
Yeah,
keyboards
yeah, yeah.
really shine, and you have these guitar solos that are really giving Neil Schon time to stretch out and show his chops.
Raleigh's keyboard skills, definitely on that B side, came out with some like really, really interesting sounds and beats in there. It was that B side is something, man.
And the rhythm section, Ross Valerie and Ainsley,
Very tight.
It was just
Absolutely.
so in sync. It gelled. I just love a good rhythm section.
Yeah.
It's sometimes I feel like it's there. A lot of bands you hear that the rhythm section isn't quite in sync, if that makes sense.
Oh, I agree with you, definitely.
Like
I recently, or for the last year now, I've been really listening to music and I'm listening to the rhythm section a lot, and I'm finding a lot of bands very stiff, very, no ebb and flow to it, no, sense of, playing off each other, very stiff, almost as if the parts are written, because I'm sure they are.
Yeah.
But just when you hear a great rhythm section playing, it's almost like you don't hear them, because they just become part of the music.
Absolutely.
I think that's
Right.
a testament to a great musician.
Yeah.
When it just seems not only effortless, but you're not even like noticing that it's happening.
Right. Yeah. Overall, very pleasantly surprised on how great this album was. So.
Any other thoughts on? I mean, that was a quick discussion, but we really what do we think about this compared to later, more popular?
Oh god.
Well, I mean,
Branden, what do you think about later Journey in comparison to this?
I had, for the past few years, I definitely stopped believing in them. But hearing this album, album renewed my faith.
yeah.
Like, really, Neil Schon just shreds it the whole album.
yeah.
It blew my fucking mind. I didn't know Journey was even capable of such a thing. Like,
Yeah.
it really, like, they're a totally different band in this album than what you hear in their more popular stuff.
Yeah.
Just really solid all around. No
Yeah,
complaints.
I would highly recommend it. If you like the later Journey stuff, I would say it's necessary listening.
Yeah.
I feel
Yeah.
stupid for not having listened to it sooner.
If-
Honestly.
If by like the later Journey stuff you mean Don't Stop Believing, then you might not dig.
Well, I
this
think
album, but-
well, you might not dig. You might not dig it. You might not pick up what they're putting down, but I think you should at least hear it.
But if you like Journey as a band and not just their couple hits, then I think you'd
Well, no one who just likes their couple hits is going to be listening to the show, to be honest.
exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Like
and
those true and dedicated fans.
I think the biggest the group of people that I can extend a recommendation to is people who are really into prog music or really into progressive hard rock. If you like a band like Uriah Heep or Jethro Tull,
There you go.
If you like that kind of stuff, but you weren't really aware of this or have kind of avoided it because you don't like that classic Journey sound, give this a shot. I mean, like we said, it's like a different band.
Yeah.
It's not that classic Journey sound. It's a whole nother animal.
At all. No one in their right mind would be able to pick it up other than Neil Schon, but they'd be, it's some band he was in before Journey.
Right. The band he did after Santana.
he absolutely shredded it in here.
Yeah.
Absolutely shredded it.
Which both Greg Raleigh and Neil Schon were in Santana.
Yeah.
A lot of these musicians played with, a lot of people.
Like we were saying, prog is like constantly, everyone's always playing with
It's like
everyone.
incestuous almost.
Yeah, but I think it's just,
Yeah.
it's like jazz. When everyone's that talented, and almost all these pieces are born from jam sessions, or, listen to King Crimson's first album, which is pretty much the birth of prog as a monstrous genre. I mean, with a...
Yeah. No, I would agree.
That's
with
pretty much the seminal, birth of prog, really. It's not the first prog album by any means, but...
I know what you're saying, though.
that's the one that really set the standard for what a prog album looked and sounded like, with that track list and that, a song like Moonchild, just 12 minutes of free improvisation. Like it or hate it, that's an important piece of music.
Right.
That's a revolutionary and influential piece of music.
I'm sorry, Dan.
I was just gonna say I wanted your guys your opinion on it. I was talking to Jarrod earlier. I was listening to the Moody Blues. I think that they were kind of I think they're debatably one of the first prog bands. I mean, I don't know if you guys consider them prog.
I would say that.
As much as some of the other bands, but
I haven't delved into the Moody Blues.
I've never been a Moody Blues fan. Really.
Yeah.
I've never really been, but I would definitely say their early stuff has prog elements.
I think they were one of the first. Like I said, we were talking about the Night. Yeah. Certainly, with Keith Emerson was the organist. Just crazy, unbelievable.
Real quick on that King Crimson. Have you guys ever listened to the album Red?
Yeah.
Even though it's like all black. Okay, I listened to that I was
red but all black.
That's considered one of the great prog rock albums.
I have it. Well, I know I have it laying somewhere in my basement, but it was like late at night. I'm just sitting down there reading. And I put that on because I was like, oh, well, I just listened to the big famous one. Let's just go on to Red. I had to stop it because it actually started to scare me. It was like the crazy violin coming down and everything.
Yeah.
It's like
their
late
music
at night,
is very haunting.
and I just stopped. I'm like, yeah, I'll listen to this. Like when the sun's up and everything.
They definitely approach prog from a more experimental.
Absolutely, Robert Fripp.
Yeah,
so interesting
Bill
though.
Yep.
I find King Crimson and Robert Fripp's solo projects and the offshoots very hit and miss. But the stuff I really like, and sometimes it grows on me too. Lark's Tongues and Aspect, in particular, that King Crimson album, wasn't crazy about it the first time, but the more I hear it, really like it.
Yeah.
Very experimental though.
Definitely.
But when it comes to prog, we're going to do our album recommendations now. We're each picking 2 albums. These aren't necessarily the most important prog albums, the most famous, or the ones that are essential listening. These are albums we really like that you may not hear if we don't recommend them to you.
Yeah.
Or just whatever we feel like recommending. So we each got 2.
Branden, do you want to start us off? You're the guest.
Yeah, sure. So the first one that I'm going to recommend is progressive oriental metal. It is Tales of the Sand by Mirath. And it is just a really solid album all around. They Mirath was a Symphony X cover band in their early days. Yes.
Oh, no kidding.
And
wow. What? That's big aspirations. How should we start off? Let's cover Symphony X. that should be easy.
They did it well, though. They really did it well, and the Symphony X influences really shine throughout the album and all of their albums, and Mirath as a whole is just a band that I've really digged anytime I listen to them. The other album that I think should be necessary listening for anyone who likes prog is gonna have to be The Human Equation by Ayreon.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
And wow, I mentioned
Branden, is it because I think you've said this to me before? Is this your all-time favorite album?
Have I said that to you before? I don't know. It's up there though. It might be. I'd have to think about it.
I'm not pressuring you. I was just wondering.
If I've said that before, I wouldn't be surprised. It's so fucking good. Wow. It takes you on a journey through a comatose man's mind, and you experience his breadth of emotions, and it really will make you go through a whole rainbow of emotions yourself as you're listening to it.
You might go across a rainbow bridge of emotion.
that one's into the electric castle.
Yeah. I apologize.
No.
I thought that was Thor.
It's really...
Well, that's where it comes from. It's Norse mythology.
Yeah.
It's really Arjen Anthony Lucassen at his finest. Okay, this album is so good. James LeBry sings the main lead. And he sounds beautiful.
Even he sounds good on this album, which is a testament to how Arjen Lucassen can channel a vocalist well. Because I can't stand his voice on any Dream Theater.
And it makes you realize he's not a bad singer, which is something you might not get if you listen to Dream Theater. He's actually a really good singer. He just needs to be singing the right songs.
Yeah.
And Arjen Lucassen knows how to do that, and I really can't praise the album enough. Oh, and there's some killer tunes on it.
We're getting some banging and rocking in the studio here.
Whoops. I don't know, like, probably one of my favorite tracks on the album is Loser, featuring Devin Townsend.
And some great didgeridoo playing.
It's got some nasty didgeridoo playing.
Great track.
It's like, got like this folk heavy.
It's like Aboriginal metal.
Yes, Aboriginal metal. And where else are you gonna find that other than some crazy concept prog album? Nowhere. Is the
Great
answer.
picks. Ben, do you want to launch into yours?
All right, I'll launch into mine. Okay. I got two on my plate here. So the first one I'm gonna go with is.
When did you turn into Christopher Walken?
I don't know. That was it. You really call that? Never mind. But the point is, my first recommendation is the Flower Kings' "The Rainmaker." That first song just had me hooked. That first song, the Last Minutes on Earth. It's so cool. It's the whole album to me is like this crazy this apocalyptic concept to it, and plus the album cover is just this guy nonchalantly walking in the rain, and it's like he's nearly like drowning in it and everything. I just think the way it like progresses more and more and more into the album, the more and more you realize, wow, this is like it's such a great sound to it, and compared to like the other Flower King stuff like Adam and Eve and what is it, Paradox Hotel.
Yeah.
I just think that the Rainmaker, that first time I listened to them and the first time I was introduced to them, that was the one that just stuck to me the most.
Yeah. I love that LP too. I think it's really great. And that, like you said, that opening track really is the best, for better or worse, the best song on the album.
Yeah.
And I have to say, we're not touching into the top 5 guitarists yet, but Roy Stolt from the Flower Kings didn't make my list, but he was definitely one I was thinking of.
Oh yeah.
His tone is just like the most perfect tone for a prog rock guitarist. Yeah. It's just sonorous, absolutely sonorous.
So for my second pick, I'm gonna do Uriah Heep's "Look at Yourself."
Nice.
Well, if you get the right one, I was lucky enough to pick it up at a record store. You pick up the record, and they give you some of them. If you can find the right one, they give you some kind of mirror on the front where you can sort of see yourself. You're faded.
You can look at yourself.
But you can look at yourself right at the cover.
While you listen to the title track and really take a good look.
That opening track is it's so heavy, and the riffs in that are just like it blasts right into your ears.
Yeah, the way Ken Hensley's organ just starts off that album right away.
Absolutely.
Just right in your face.
And
it's great.
It gets you ready for what's ahead, but
which is July Morning.
I was just gonna say the one song on there which I just absolutely love to listen to is July Morning. I was loving what I was before that. I really loved it, and then this hit me, July Morning, and I thought the song was just absolutely perfect, and when it progressed more into the album, it just I don't know. It's just that one in particular I listened to for the first time. I thought this was like a perfect album. I loved everything on there. The screeching riffs at the beginning, the July Morning stuff like that, the organ, it's great. So my 2 recommendations: Flower Kings, The Rainmaker, Uriah Heep, Look at Yourself.
All right, for my 2 picks, dipped into some stuff that's a little obscure.
Yeah.
My first album is one I just picked up one day. I had no idea what it was, and just popped it on the turntable. It's from 1968. It's an album by a band called Ford Theater. And I believe they only have one other album, which is nowhere near as good as this one. But this is their first album, Trilogy for the Masses. This is like a psychedelic acid progressive rock, masterpiece. Only a few songs, and I don't know if it's a concept album, but there's a returning theme that they play throughout the album, and this theme is so beautiful. It's so beautiful. But then they launch and they segue from this theme into these like massive psychedelic jams, and the highlight of the album is this this song 101 Harrison Street, this 10-minute jam that's just really great, that just kicks off the album after the main theme. Very just like acidic, very like bluesy, ripping, like psychedelic vibes to it. Very late 60s, birth of prog, like coming into the forefront. Great album. But my other one is very different. And this is from 1991. It's an album by a band, Pendragon. And this is an album called The World. It has a very fantastical album cover. A magician flying over a river with a unicorn. Is
that the Yellow Brick Road?
It's Prog.
It's very Prog, right? And if you look on the side of the river here, the sand, I actually never noticed this until now, but the sand on the beach looks like a nude figure, like a naked woman.
Oh, I could see.
I've never noticed that until now.
Oh my god.
There you go. It's okay. This album.
Where do they get these guys to do the covers of these things? But go on.
This album is great. This, if you like Marillion, you will like this because this is a neo-prog album. This is very synth heavy. This is very melodic with a very pop sensibility, but it's prog through and through. These synthesizer sounds are, just out of this world. Clive Nolan is the synthesizer player, keyboard player for Pendragon. I mean, there's so many good songs on here. There's a song, The Voyager, on here that opens up with this slide guitar and just goes into a very Pink Floyd kind of groove to it. Then there's other songs like the closing track and We'll Go Hunting Deer that's almost like a pop ballad done in, neo-prog form. Really great album. Their other albums are really great too, but this one's always been my favorite. Pendragon, The World. Dan, what are your two picks?
My two picks are from probably two of the bigger prog bands. The first one is a live album by one of my favorite bands, Traffic. The album is called On the Road. I'm a huge Steve Winwood fan. He is a musician who has played with so many people. He's been in so many bands. It's a very jazz fusion. There's a lot of jazz fusion, but it's very progressive. I think there's only like 7 songs on there. Overall, really tight live album. I highly recommend it.
What's it called? I'm sorry.
On the Road.
On the Road.
On the Road
Traffic.
from Traffic. And number 2, my second pick is an album that we all really like, and it's an album by Yes, and it's called Drama.
Tempest Fugit.
Fugit.
It's Fugit. Tempest Fugit.
I would say
Tempest, fuck it.
Yeah, right.
There you go.
I would say next to Close to the Edge, it might be my favorite. I mean, you can't go wrong with it. It's
very underrated.
Yeah, extremely underrated. I love the personnel in this band. John Anderson was not the lead vocalist, and Rick Wakeman wasn't the keyboardist. What they actually did was they had Chris Squire on bass, Steve Howe on guitar, and Alan White on drums. They hooked up with the Buggles, Video Killed the Radio Star. Trevor Horn and Jeff Downs, bass player and singer, and then Jeff Downs, keyboardist.
Who would also be in Asia.
Yeah, he's actually in the current lineup of Yes as the keyboard player too.
Oh, really?
Yeah. But anyways, they were
Big happy family.
Who knew that like this pop group would mesh so well with Yes. And yeah, there's some really great songs on there. Yeah, like as Ben said, Tempest Fugit.
Or my favorite.
Into the Lens, is that your
Into the
favorite?
Lens.
I love
That is great.
That's a song that was actually later done on a Buggles album called I Am a Camera.
And you know what? It sucks.
Yeah, it does. It's not as when you get Chris Squire doing that thumping bass line, man. It's like
I just gotta say the hook on that song
Dun,
is
dun,
so
dun, dun.
infectious. No, the I am a camera.
oh yeah, camera. Yeah, and then
Let's save that for our podcast
Yeah.
where we sing crappy music.
and
that we talked about last
then,
time.
what a killer opening track with Machine Messiah.
Yeah.
Love that song.
Wow.
And overall, very solid album. one of my favorite prog albums. So
I gotta say, great picks, everyone.
Yeah, so for my picks again, On the Road, Traffic, it's a live album. And number 2 is Drama by the great Yes. So.
All right, now, if you can hear, that's me rubbing my hands together. We're launching into our top 5 for this episode. Top 5 favorite guitarists.
Yeah.
Notice I said favorite guitarists. Who wants to kick us off?
I guess I'll...
you want to kick us off, Dan?
I'll kick it off. This was a very difficult list.
I just want to say,
me.
before we really get into this, we can't have too much argument on these ones here. Like I said, this is favorite.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's keep...
There are a lot of guitarists that I love.
I think everyone understands that, these are just like personal top 5. Like, there's so many great guitarists, you can't pick everyone.
We're not Rolling Stone magazine.
We're not going to do top 500 guitarists. But anyway,
we probably could, but
well, we could, but we're not.
We're not going to right now.
Not much of an argument.
Dan, let's hear your top 5.
So my top 5. We actually just mentioned him. Unbelievable. He can play anything.
What, Steve Howe?
Steve Howe is.
Are you kidding me? No, I'm kidding.
Oh no, he's definitely worth having it very high.
Nosferatu himself.
Absolutely, you're right. Yeah. Just listen to some of the songs. Mood for a Day. The Clap. No, it's not about gonorrhea. It's just a very nice little instrumental.
Thanks.
I'm just
wondering about that.
I just wanted to clarify. It's not about a venereal disease. But anyway,
even if it was, it'd still be awesome.
Yeah. And anyway, some of the riffs he does on stuff with Asia and Yes, just. His acoustic stuff is unbelievable. The licks he plays like on songs like Close to the Edge, is just jaw dropping. It's unbelievable.
I agree.
So my number 4, I kind of feel like we can't I can't avoid not talking about him. But number 4 for me is I'll throw in Jimi Hendrix.
Yeah.
Not number 1 for me, but he's definitely he's one of my favorite musicians. Like he, in a way, I mean, you can argue this, but I think he kind of had the perfect career. I mean, he had like 4 technically. I mean, he's had a bunch of posthumous albums that I've never really heard, but like I'm talking about the 3 albums he did with The Experience, and then he did one with the Band of Gypsies.
The live one.
The live one.
That's really good.
It's probably my favorite.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's a really good album. But
yeah, you can't really argue with Hendrix. I mean, he's been so accepted as one of, if not the greatest electric guitarist of all time. So arguing with it is pointless and stupid. So I mean, So I'll just spoiler alert. He's not on my list, but I don't see why he shouldn't be.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Right, but he's still he still paved the way for a lot of guitarists since then.
Oh yeah,
he's a huge influence on a lot of people that have come out since then. There are 12-year-old kids learning Purple Haze around the world, so it's not a bad place to start learning. With Hendrix.
Exactly.
Number 3, I got some blues guys on here. Number 3 is the man, the myth, the legend, B.B. King. Is number 3. He is, like 87 years old. He's still gigging.
88, actually. I checked yesterday. Literally yesterday.
Wow.
Go on.
Okay.
Ben is a B.B. King expert.
I'm sorry, but
his last name is.
My parents were wondering, like, how old is he? I'm like 88.
Fucking old.
Yeah, that's what
When I saw him a few summers ago, and it's pretty nuts.
Yeah.
Just like seeing him, I'm like, holy shit, that's B.B. King. He's like 20 feet away from me.
Right.
Like, that's the real B.B. King.
Yeah. He has...
Like, oh my god, it's almost like seeing, like, Paul McCartney on the street or something. It's like, oh my god, that's that person.
Yeah.
Like, that's the legend there. It's like walking past Leonardo da Vinci on the street or something. But they bring him down in a wheelchair, and he walks onto the stage, and he sits on a stool, and he plays, and then they wheel him off.
Yeah.
And you never see him again. And I ran out to where his trailer was, and I saw him get wheeled up and walk into his trailer, and they shut the door. And it's almost like you could say, and that was the last time he was ever seen. He played the greatest show, and he died. Right. Because it's just like he goes into that trailer, and I'm thinking, I'll probably never see him again.
Yeah.
But I was so glad I was able to, and it was like this very surreal experience.
He
seeing
has
him so close.
Yeah, he in my book has the best guitar vibrato. Like it's like no one else sounds like BB King.
Well, he just lets all those notes shine.
Yeah.
He's not a very like technical player. He's not a very busy player, but like just
BB don't play no chords.
BB don't play.
BB don't play no chords.
Oh,
That U2 song he's on is awesome.
Yeah, well,
So great.
He just enhances it so much. What's that song called?
When Love Comes to Town.
Comes to Town. Yeah.
Great song.
Yeah. Number 2 for me, another guy who's been around since the 50s, classic Buddy Guy. Unbelievable.
Another guy.
Yeah, another guy.
Yeah.
As
opposed to a woman.
Yeah.
Band, his name's Buddy Guy.
He, to me, just is, I think, the quintessential Chicago blues guitarist. He was a big influence on Hendrix and people like Stevie Ray Vaughan, blah, blah, blah. But, like, not only is he a great guitarist, he's just a great showman. Not only is he a great guitarist, he's a great vocalist. You know, he has a rapport with his fans, and like you just, you know, he's just unbelievable. I hope I have the opportunity to see him in concert one of these days.
Me too. Should go together.
Yeah, we should go. That'll be fun. Now for me,
Buddy Guy, we're coming.
Yeah. And for me,
Number one, Dan.
Number one, I think it's pretty predictable now, but for me, he's just hands down my favorite.
Eddie Van Halen.
No, although I do like Eddie Van Halen very much.
Everybody in Nickelback.
Why do we do this every time I'm about to say my number one? We suggest the stupidest fucking things. Nickelback. No, slow hand himself, Eric Clapton is number one for me.
Absolutely.
I mean. Unbelievable.
Not Lil Wayne?
No, not Lil Wayne. I'm sorry.
I was gonna say that.
Oh, he was your number one?
He was my number one.
I'm sorry. You're going to have to pick a new one.
He was my dad.
Find some other asshole to pick.
He was my dad.
Yeah, he was my dad.
You look very much like him. Anyways.
Jarrod does.
I'm told I look like
Yeah.
Lil Wayne.
Yeah. Anyways.
By you.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Anyways.
that's a story no one wants to hear.
Anyways.
Tell us about Lil Wayne,
You mean Eric Clapton?
your favorite guitarist.
Eric Clapton is someone else that.
Branden, who are your...
Jesus Christ. Anyways. Eric
Who's
Clapton.
your number 5, Brent? All right,
Go on,
tell us
sorry.
about Eric Clapton. No one knows about this guy.
No, it's fine.
Who is he?
Well, I was just gonna say he's somebody like Steve.
Was he ever in a band?
Steve Winwood. He's been in quite a bit of bands. He's almost incestuous. He's been in a billion bands: the Yardbirds, Cream, John Mayall's Blues Breakers, Blind Faith, Derek and the Dominos.
One sentence. Why is he the best?
He has the best emotion out of any guitar player I've ever heard. He has just pure emotion. He is a purist. I think out of all the guitarists I hear, like, he puts his heart and soul into it. I think the most out of any guitar player I've heard.
That was a really compound sentence.
That was Charles Dickens.
That was Dickensian.
Mrs. Drummond would be so sad.
That was some James Joyce, Ulysses run-on stream of consciousness prose right there. But anyway, we're moving on to Brandon's top 5 favorite guitarists.
All right.
Branden,
So,
rattle them off. What do you got?
This list comes in no particular order except for my number 1. So these are not. I didn't have much time to think of this, so these aren't necessarily my top 5. If you ask me on another day, it could be a completely different list. Except
I think
for my
everyone's
number
list
one
is
spoiler.
subject to change, so...
I'll call you
Yeah.
tomorrow.
We'll do a follow-up show. Brandon's top 5 favorite guitarists, day by day. We'll do daily updates. If you follow us on Facebook at In Groove Music Podcast, you'll get our daily updates on changes or modifications to these lists.
With a picture of
So,
Brandon's face.
Just because he's been on my mind today, because we listened to that wonderful Journey album, Neil Schon, really killer guitarist. I really liked him on Frontiers. As a child, I was very, very impressed by his guitar playing on Back Talk from Frontiers. It's fucking badass. Then
Well said.
another childhood favorite, Eric Johnson.
Nice.
Cliffs of Dover is such a smooth tune.
Yeah.
That's true.
And, oh my
Smooth is pretty much the perfect word for that.
Yeah.
It's out of this world.
One of the best songs on Guitar Hero. Which Guitar Hero was it?
We're gonna
We're
We're gonna sing that song a cappella on our other podcast.
I love how that was the specific part that everyone started to sing.
I said on our other podcast, the one that we don't publish online.
That was just.
That was in sync, guys. Good job.
No, that wasn't in sync. That was Eric Johnson.
We put all those.
Who's the next, Branden?
Number 3, Andre Olbrich from Blind Guardian.
Nice.
Really, I don't know. It's just great. Blind Guardian as a whole, awesome. His one of my favorite songs, and it's prominent with his playing, is the Bard song. It just speaks to my soul on a very emotional level. In the Forest.
Okay.
Yeah. Good catch. But both of them are great.
I got it.
And then Devin Townsend. He
Yeah.
does all of his own guitar work, and it's all awesome.
Very versatile player.
He has the vocals too, and he can, like you said, versatile. He ranges from the heaviest and metals that would just sink to the bottom of the ocean to his fucking synth pop, whatever it is.
Yeah, no one was able to say it, neither you or me, because we're both big fans, as a album pick, but we did touch on them briefly. And in terms of Prog, those 2 albums that released in tandem, Deconstruction and Ghost, I think are some of the most fantastic albums released in recent years.
If I was not just recommending albums and saying a top 5 or something, both of those would probably be on.
I'd say those are Desert Island discs.
Those
are because they're lengthy, but they play well, and they're just. I can see myself listening to those constantly and getting new things out of them.
Really, Devin Townsend, guys, great artist.
Have you come to your number 1 now, Branden?
My number 1, and if you know me, this is obvious. Nuno Betancourt. Just
if people don't know, from the great band Extreme, the underrated
band. Extreme.
He's with Rihanna.
He plays with Rihanna now.
Ooh.
Of all people,
Yeah, you didn't know that?
What?
He does, and you know what? He shreds.
Yeah.
Really?
He shreds.
Disturbia.
I'm gonna have to hear some of that. Then.
Oh yeah,
You can find live videos on YouTube.
Yeah.
They don't broadcast live, but they're videos of live shows.
Nice. Wow.
What an interesting collaboration, you know?
Yeah.
You learn something new every day. But
Very eclectic.
Brownie points for
Branden, you'll know this. What is the song on Waiting for the Punchline where he plays the acoustic?
Midnight Express.
Yes.
Awesome.
If you want to hear good guitar playing, I'm just gonna say,
There you go.
listen to that.
Midnight Express is awesome. There isn't a single song by Extreme where I haven't been impressed by his playing. Maybe a couple songs from the first album, where he's a little bit rough, but even then, Play With Me, top notch. Then you've got his fantastic 3 Sides to Every Story.
I don't want to put words in your mouth again, but because it's my favorite song ever, is Everything Under the Sun still your favorite song as well?
Yes, definitely.
We have the same favorite song.
Anytime I've listened to it literally on.
I've heard it hundreds of times, and it's 20 minutes long.
20 minutes long. I've spent literal days of my life listening to this song.
I've spent weeks of my life hearing that song, and I don't regret it for a second.
No, really fantastic song. He just puts so much emotion into all of his music. Even when he's shredding, he plays with finesse and he plays artfully. Some guitarists, they'll be really technically proficient and as such they'll lose a lot of the emotion in their playing. But he's got both. He's got it all the way through, and and he's Portuguese. He's basically
that's a plus in our
my
book.
brother. He's basically we're basically related. He's actually played at one of my relatives' weddings before.
He does cookouts. He does cookouts, bar mitzvahs.
Yeah.
Funerals.
He's great though.
Funerals.
Awesome guitarist.
Speaking of funerals, who are your top 5 guitarists?
They're not all dead.
They're not all dead?
Well, except for the first one. my first one, no particular order. Was listening to his solo stuff and his band Taste the other day. Rory Gallagher.
Oh, nice.
We brought him up.
I was gonna say you're not gonna be the last person mentioning Rory Gallagher.
Yeah. I was listening to his self-titled Rory Gallagher album.
That album is awesome.
That
Laundromat.
Yeah. Oh my.
Am I Laundromat?
Yeah.
Just if you don't like that song,
it's quite amazing.
there's something wrong with your ticker.
It really is. Wow, ticker. No, but it's something to do with like how he brought his he brought his name into the blues, the blues rock medium. His guitar, he really just jams quite a bit. Not every song he does, but when he gets into just like these crazy riffs and jams, it's filled with deep, heavy tracks, and I really enjoyed what he's put out. I just listened to Taste the other day. It's good. He's good in there too, but where he really shines is his solo stuff. It really is something to behold. Another one, surprise, Dan, you didn't bring him up, was Jimmy Page of Zeppelin Lead.
As they're filed in
Yeah.
all record stores by Z.
Yeah. No, Jimmy Page. This is like him and one other one are like what are you doing?
Yeah, Jimmy Page.
Jimmy Page and one other one on here just have a personal spot in my heart because like I grew up with.
Who's that other one?
All right, I'll put them together. Jimmy Page and Joe Perry from Aerosmith.
Knew it.
Yeah, well.
Knew it.
Yeah, we called out.
Well, they just have a special place in my heart because they were the first two that I really got to know, Aerosmith and Zeppelin, and they are my.
I love Jimmy Page's style though. It's very like it's very sloppy. Like he's a sloppy.
It's very sloppy,
but it's like great.
It really is, especially some of the live stuff.
Oh, he is so sloppy live.
Holy God! But it's amazing. I love it.
Yeah,
it is really like it. It's great.
It's tasty sloppy. It's like a sloppy Joe of guitar playing.
Really,
yeah. It's the untidy Jose of guitar playing.
I love sloppy Joes. But speaking of Joe,
untidy Jose.
You don't call him that? I do.
Joe,
that's hilarious.
Joe Perry, he's really good. He's not great. He's good. He's really good. But again, he has that special place in my heart.
Like we said, favorites.
Just because Aerosmith, they were like the first band I really got to know, and plus I went to go see Aerosmith last year again, and he was I want to say like 15 feet away from me, and it was amazing, and I loved it. Same for
Brad Whitford's a good guitarist too.
Yeah, he's good too. Yeah, they're all good. They're all good musicians. The next one, Dan brought him up, was B.B. King. I really want to see him live before he slowly passes away, because again, he's 88 years old and he's
never die.
Yeah.
B.B. King never dies.
I'm dying to see him just because.
Well, the blues never dies.
Yeah, and that's why he sings the blues. But the point is, he's.
Oh, that's why.
That's why.
He has such a legendary career that just seeing him live, you feel like you're part of that legendary career that he created for himself, and just to say, I saw B.B. King live, or even like a Buddy Guy, or when he was alive, like a Muddy Waters, just to say, I saw B.B. King live. That's quite a thing to say. I'm very jealous that you saw him.
I gotta say, in terms of seeing people live, I'm jealous of my father. He's seen many people live, but he saw Stevie Ray Vaughan play in a bar before he was famous.
Wow. Unrelated to music, but my dad played basketball with Patrick Ewing before he was on the Knicks.
All right, you got another guitarist, or are you just
my last one is Robert
Magic Johnson.
Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
Isaiah is my last
Lil Wayne.
My last guitarist. I brought him up again last week with Robert Cray. He's just the way he got it. Just the way I started listening to him, and again that
so many women, so little time
in a phone booth, and I love him. He's just a great blues guy, and I really dig his style a lot. But
I love him too.
Jarrod?
All right, this is my top 5. I am totally cheating with my number 5 spot.
It's fine.
But I just couldn't pick between these two guys, and they're both named Frank. So, I mean, one I've seen live, and the other one I never got to, which is unfortunate. But I think the fact that I've seen the one live is influencing my choice, because it was an amazing concert. So I'm saying, if I had seen the other one live, he might be even higher, I don't know. But Frank Marino and Frank Zappa. Totally different players, but both totally virtuosic and totally have their own distinct sound. I mean, Frank Marino fronted this band, Mahogany Rush. He's still playing. This concert I went to, 3 hours. Wow. I'd say about 2 hours and 45 minutes of it was guitar solo.
Oh.
Pure guitar solo. If you want to hear what this concert sounded like, pick up the double live CD from Frank Marino called Real Live. It was almost exactly what he played. What he does is, he's very influenced by Hendrix, but he plays all these songs and they blend and meld into each other, and he'll be playing like one song, and then you'll just start hearing like, oh shit, he's playing Red House, Jimi Hendrix, like.
Yeah.
And then
Starts
like all
off with Voodoo Chili.
Starts off with Voodoo Chili. I love how every time you say Voodoo Child, you say Voodoo Chili. You stick to that like a leech on a standby.
Actually, that time I said Chile.
I think you showed me him. And
I definitely showed you.
Wow.
Frank Marino. Yeah, and then just Frank Zappa. Like,
you can't go wrong with him. Yeah.
Totally innovative, and the way I can't pronounce the name of the technique that he invented, but he'd take recorded live guitar solos and then put them to new backing to make musical fusion happen. But Frank Zappa just both of them out of this world. Just seeing them is just mind blowing. My number 4, he's been mentioned. Nuno Betancourt, Extreme.
Yeah.
I mean,
more than words can describe how. That was a bad segue. Yeah, but he is.
Did I say good talk about it? Well, anyway.
What an asshole.
We already talked about Nuno Betancourt. I'm just here. He's on my list too. He's number 4. What a player. What a player. What a guy. Swell player. A swell player.
By the way, a lot of people don't know this, but he shreds on More Than Words too. It's just not
the
radio edit.
Yeah.
A nasty solo at the end.
Forget radio edits.
Heard. Ugh.
My number 3. This is an interesting one. And I'm the only person to have a female guitarist on their list. Number 3, Annie Clark, a.k.a. St. Vincent. Saw her live 2 months ago. I was pressed against the stage. She was about 10 feet away from me. She comes out, she's playing the lead track off her new self-titled album, Rattlesnake. I'm just like soaking it all in. I'm like, oh my god, I'm amazed. This band sounds so crisp, so tight. And then she launches into her guitar solo. And my mind was blown. I mean, just her tone is like none other. And her guitar almost sounds like so unnatural at times, so stilted, so rough, so jarring. But there's like a beautiful quality to it, and just like totally defines playing guitar like no one else. I mean, I love everything about her sound on guitar, and watching her play, like, really impressive technique, but a technique all her own. And if you know me, I love that she just indulges in pure noise at times. It's just pure sound, throbbing vibration of the guitar, really letting it just hang and linger on some feedback, real earthy thump and fuzz. Number 2, Rory Gallagher.
Yep.
Hands down, one of the best. Yeah. Rest in peace. All I'm going to say is, if you ain't be listening to Rory, you're missing out.
You're missing out on a lot.
And number 1, another guitarist I've seen live, which is definitely influencing my decision, but he sounds great on the record too. So, Kim Simmons, lead guitarist of Savoy Brown.
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah,
I completely forgot.
I mean, just effortless. Seeing this guy play is amazing. I can't even say anything else. I'm at a loss for words.
Basically.
Those are our top 5 favorite guitarists. And
You'll know.
that was our Prog episode of In Groove. This is In Groove, the music podcast show. If you got any recommendations for us, you can send them to, I believe it's ingroovepodcast@gmail.com, or hit us up on Facebook, In Groove Music Podcast. What did you think of our picks for prog rock albums? What did you think about Journey and A Look Into the Future? What did you think of our top 5 favorite guitarists? What are your top 5 favorite guitarists? I don't care, but let us know anyway. I'm just kidding. And have a wonderful evening.
Bye, everyone.
Listen to some prog. Signing out. Dan, say goodbye to all those people out there.
Take care, everybody.
Branden, we'd love to have you on again.
Yeah.
Ben.
Remember, guys, ask the parent before you hug the child. Have a good night.